Meow.
Hello everybody and welcome to this Thursday's new teaching show with Andrew Bartzis, Laura Massey, Dale Tobin and myself.
Minus the grass cutter.
Minus the grass cutter, yeah. We almost had a grass cutter, but lucky enough Andrew was able to save us. So
without the grass cutter gremlins, didn't
we? So today's show is the Galactic Communication Show. So a couple of weeks ago we had the Atlantis show, and it kind of took a different turn, and we began to take calls or transmissions, however you want to phrase it, from different species around the universe who had questions for Andrew. And we had such a great response that we decided to dedicate a show to it. So we're looking forward to getting into that. But first, Laura's going to speak to us for a while.
Hi everybody. So I'm going to read one of Andrew's most amazing documents, when Joel puts it, just so we can all emanate the energies of peacemaker, peacekeeper, celestial medium of peace, and invoking the fifth world of peace. All species, kind, living and coexisting on Earth Mother's realms seek peace in their own way, own expression. Peace is a frequency of love without strings or conditions attached. The fifth world of peace symbolizes an advanced knowingness of peace emanating from the heart space of the connected I Am Self, born through the natural way of Earth living. All beings of Earth come from the womb of a sacred feminine. This knowledge is not discarded or ignored in the fifth world of peace. To become one with the fifth world of peace means you have defined what the four previous worlds meant as ancestral teachers. The past taught us our traditions, esoteric practices, and forms of forced and unforced evolution. The distilled teachings of the fifth world of peace means we have learned our history in cellular and DNA memories. When one understands the fifth world of peace, they learn to evolve out of the old ways and manifest the new ways of living in harmony with all creature kind. The fifth world of peace teaches us how to let go of war, hate, shame, blame, and guilt. The fifth world teaches us, through our past experiences, why forced evolution is not within the divine co-creative will of all beings on a sacred journey through the multiverse as density manifested beings. Each being has the right to evolve and create their own way of sacred living, without judgment or scorn from another. Each being needs their own time with the pregnant great mystery of their own creation. The fifth world of peace means we have learned and relearned why we do not step on the journeys of others. Understanding the nuances of stepping on another's journey will help define why the warriors of the rainbow have manifested within the fifth world of peace, to be the teachers of the past, present and future as manifested peacekeepers. We are all warriors of the rainbow. We have all survived the four previous teacher worlds of Earth Mother's realms. We have learned about war and ignorance. Now we make sacred the learning and relearning of non-competition, non-hierarchal order. With these as our makeup and blueprint, we grow and evolve the meaning of the fifth world of peace. It is time we pick up from where we left off as infinite beings on a sacred journey. Today is the day I accept the fifth world of peace as celestial teacher spirit from Earth Mother. The fifth world of peace will expand our perceptions of what is creature kind. We will learn of other relations, of other red blood worlds, sister and brother worlds to Earth Mother. Those red road relations will come to Earth in service to the fifth world of universal peace. It will be our rites of passage to accept the responsibility of manifesting the fifth world of peace, so all celestial red road relations may find remedy and resolve to the four previous teacher worlds. We all become the peacemakers, peacekeepers, and peace procreators by choosing unconditional love as the route of our journey to the stars and beyond. Our journey to the stars will be filled with many new brothers and sisters. Many of their journeys have been ongoing for thousands of years. They will teach us of the stars and other celestial relations, not of red blood relations, and we will teach them of earth-based natural living, the potentials of how to have natural childbirth, be mothers and fathers and responsible procreating sentient beings, manifesting a peaceful journey. Many star brothers and sisters have had a long red road walk. They will be tired and weary for the loss of great loves and friendships, for they live thousands of years to our hundreds. Many of them will be sick in the soul from loss, war and isolation. It will be our service to the fifth world of peace to learn how to be healers, soul healers and loving friends with those looking to let down from a long, long journey to the stars and beyond. Aho.
Aho, sister.
Oh,
I really like that one. It makes me cry just about every time. I remember the inspiration of writing it and how easily it flowed.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read it many, many, many times.
This is something we must apply to our world. Peace. With that being said, we open the doors of peaceful communication to the many that are willing to talk to the Galactic Historian now.
okie dokie. And that was a very apt reading. Excuse me there, I was just writing something. Okay, so I've got some written down already, just so we had something to get straight into. And to describe the mechanics to people listening, I just get so much energy when we first did this. It was kind of overwhelming, and the reason that I began to ask the questions was to get them out of my crown chakra. So what I've done is I write down the questions because it slows down the information, because at any one given time there's so much going on that I find it quite difficult to separate them. So I've written down some of the questions that I was given just before the show. So okay. So, we are a species called the Amora. We would like to know how many of our species we left outside of this universe, because we cannot perceive them. You're muted, Andrew.
There are no more outside of this universe. All that remain are all that remain. There will not be any more reappearing. That era of history and light has ended. Those that survived will pass on the teachings and become the ancestors to the future generations who will inherit a whole new creation story.
It was very sad for them to hear that news.
There will be those in your species who cannot let go, and that's fine. They will continue the search, but what they will discover are brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Vast variety of things who are half your species, a quarter your species, 1/8 your species, 3/4 your species. But they too will have wisdom from the old world in their DNA.
And you just gave them hope I felt the whole species go into mourning then, and what you just gave them then was some hope, something to look to. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Ooh. Okay, so I have a species. So there's two different species here, Andrew. I wonder if you can tell me if they are linked, if there's something going on. So a species called the Gavora.
Did they come at you separately or individual? Or?
Yes, they came at me one first, then again. So they're calling themselves the Gavora, and then there was a few other questions, and then something came back with a similar name, the Gavora Gavana.
Are they insectoid offspring?
One of them was a collective, and the other one seems to be having problems with some form of AI that's blocking their frequency.
Do they have natural insectoid DNA in their mantikind? Or
yes.
antikind?
Yes.
Then the answer is they're absolutely linked. They're just separated by the time in which their DNA was created.
Okay.
But they came from the same creationary space.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so we'll start with the first one then. So we are the Gavora. With which timeline?
They're the older version of the two.
Okay. With which timeline can we fracture the pollution affecting our graduation timeline?
So that's the improper journey. You can't fracture timelines. They will simply be more to handle versus less to handle. Your best bet is to put as many people positive to your goals on each of those timelines, so there's a natural influence out of forced evolution into natural co-creative evolution. So you'll have to develop a timeline manifest force that will put boots on grounds in multiple timelines so they can't be manipulated out of control. So you'll need an advanced timeline temporal warfare authority who understand it's not about shedding blood in any of the realms. It's about changing the nature of the culture to be uniquely perceptive of the threats that are out there and what they can do early in their culture to have early warning signs.
Okay, so to give a little bit of more colour to this to the audience, Andrew, can you now describe the species that you're talking to?
All right, so they're about 15 foot tall. They are a mix between human and insectoid. Like, they have oversized lower bodies and oversized upper bodies with a kind of an anti-like in between, but they're very humanoid looking. Okay. With that said, the other group is the one that went down the advanced technological path and got cybernetic person. It got additional holographic add-on stuff none of the talent was ready for.
Because they said something like the usurper has gone awry, and then I could hear it. They were going calibrate, and then there was an AI interference.
What that is insectoids have a natural homing beacon, and when a very powerful queen is going to come out of the past, because they have deep ancestral presence awareness. So whenever an aspect of the insectoid DNA reaches a forlorn state, a state of extreme loss, a queen will form and start birthing very powerful souls. And what that is the AI is trying to rewrite the homing frequency to find out where the queen's going to grow, and they would naturally form cultures around them.
Wow.
And that's one of the advantages of having queen DNA in your DNA. Or any insectoid DNAs, you could repopulate your species without a breeding 30, 50, or 100 breeding groups.
That is pretty cool. So I like that concept of just expanding it a little bit rather than just firing question after question, just to give more sort of imagery to what it is we're actually talking about. So this one was interesting. It came from the Zeta Reticuli, and it was just a very short sovereignty how ? So I feel like it was a little bit difficult for this particular message to be broadcasted.
Okay, so the Zeta Reticuli government has some mirror reflection issues that we have here. First thing first is they're a collective, meaning their technology. Hold on a second, sorry, some wind's about to make shit fly here. They have technology that makes it very easy for them to interface as a collective government, a collective science, a collective medical, a collective psychological. So they're technologically and spiritually interfaced into a collective that has had to grow some very unique barriers in it, so the whole collective isn't affected by hyper emotional moments, because they want all of the individuals to still have their emotional exercise without it affecting the collective. There have been certain subject matters that have bypassed these and caused the race to go into doubt, fear, paranoia at a collective level, which is extremely destructive to them. So they've had to develop these slowing sections about certain subject matters, particularly about sovereignty. And the natural teaching of sovereignty would be to disconnect from the matrix system that's keeping them together as a technologically and a spiritual aspect of a collective. So there's the definition. There's a political collective issue that the whole collective knows about, but also understands it would mean the destruction of the collective if you allow it in, because many individuals begin to leave the collective. It's not illegal to leave the collective. It does happen, but they generally come back.
So are we talking a grey type of species here, or is there multiple species within this collective?
Multiple species within this collective, but gray is a good formulation of them. Not the only one. But they also have very human-looking children here, too. See, for them, body morphia is not as important. It's the love that they can create for individuals. Okay? So they have a huge love quotient to them. Again, their society just doesn't function like ours, so it can very much be seen as, like, oh my God, that's right, you take the child away. No, they don't. They put them around the exact type of people they're supposed to be versus their karmic energies. Because they can measure karma in a kid being born. And they can put them into doing something that will not only reduce their karma, but make them a more unique person.
That's cool. Okie dokie.
And at any point, they don't have to follow those rules. Okay? The basic rules of the society is don't kill anyone. Don't be a greedy, human capitalist.
Human capitalist.
Have they got like a head start on karmic resolution if they can do that sort of thing?
Not necessarily.
Sort of technology.
Not necessarily.
Right.
They have limitations, and that's what this question's about. And it's such a limited way, because it would cause, again, if the collective is going to start thinking about it more and more of the collective going to start leaving, which will create its own emotional depression on the collective that isn't ready for friends to leave the collective.
Pretty cool.
And it's fair to say, of all the collectives out there, theirs is the most forgiving. One of the models you can use to create your own. It's just naturally, when there's a collective, there's always going to want those that want individuality. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
And
does
so
that mean a split in the species? Quite possibly.
Yeah, because as that collective, they're not actually going to be able to really experience sovereignty. I mean, it would still be a collective experience, wouldn't it?
They could experience sovereignty as a collective. It's
Right.
not unheard of. The level to get there would mean a massive societal and technological change. That would take 2 generations, if not 3 generations, to prepare because the technology is known, but to prepare the technology and the people to accept the change in the technology.
That's cool. Okay, we're going to change up the frequency here. So these guys have got a funny name, but their question's pretty cool. So they're called the Putanaha. And their question is, which crystal skull is affecting our lives as wandering shamans? I thought that was a wonderful question.
I have to break rules to answer this question.
Okay.
Max the Crystal Skull, otherwise known as the Mitchell Hedges Skull, here in Earth.
Mm.
That one controlled. That one's in charge of all of it.
Mm.
There's so much else here I can't talk about.
Yeah, I get it. That's what I thought. Okay, so let's bring it.
I would go numb if I did.
Yeah, I get it. It sounded cool when I heard it, and then as soon as I read it out and I realised what it might take to answer that question, I realised, yeah. Okay, so here's one from the Pleiadian Council, so something more close to home. It's the Pleiadian Council of First Contact, and they are contemplating which ally to align with, and they're conflicted within their choices, and they wanted your unique perspective. And the choices are, so they give me in light language so that I can pronounce it. Gosh, I can't even read my own writing. Pana or Tahuhe. I might have mispronounced that last one.
No. I know this.
Okay.
They're only seeing the surface factions that are actually controlled by a matriarchy of very powerful women in their last 200 years of history. So you have to understand the matriarchal society. What you're seeing is the systems put forward, but those systems are just a facade to the matriarchal internal government that's in there. So you need to make communications with the matriarchal internal government, and understanding anything that gets you there is a test to see if you're worthy of that matriarchy.
And this is something that they then feel is obviously important to First Contact, or is it just that that's the group that are speaking out to me?
No, when it comes to First Contact, if you work with those maternal matriarchs of the planetary rule process, it will be far easier for you to even begin First Contact, because you'll have an entire energy system machine that will make it easier to communicate people with early trust. We'll have a stamp of signature of approval from, the ancestral spirits with that.
Yeah.
You'll be able to have pre-cognitive communication that leads into cognitive communication. And then you'll finish it off with post-cognitive communication, which is the final validation of if First Contact did anything or not. Mm-hmm. Does the human forcefully forget it? It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Disbelieve so much what I saw. No matter what I saw, I still disbelieve it.
Yeah.
Okay? Does that create a fracture in the human? Yes, it does. But they don't care. So your final understanding is post-cognitive processing. What do they actually remember from it? What can they retain from First Contact? So Second Contact, Third Contact, and Fourth Contact can begin to actually exchange an energetic code system that allows for smoother forms of communication that doesn't overuse their unused telepathy. Because that's another thing about humans and many other species. When you're not used to telepathy, it's very taxing on the brain. Very, very taxing on the brain.
Mm-hmm. And so are they choosing between a more masculine or more feminine perspective, or is it just two organizations within the matriarchal society?
The matriarchal society runs everything.
Okay.
But they do it behind a secret wall, even though everyone knows it's there. Okay?
Go ahead, Dale.
Sorry, so yeah, I was in the flow earlier today and I was speaking to a lady called Lyra, and she's from the Pleiadian Collective, and she's in like a craft just above one of the mountains in Morocco, and she was asking me some questions to ask you, and one of those was, well, there's a few of those. What does it take to separate reality with intruding forces?
The blue button to your right Reality holographic reality manipulation. I mean, I mean, it's as simple as that. Not everyone has that technology, though. Okay, okay. How do you not engage? There's millions of ways to engage. The key is when do you create rules of engagement?
And they asked as well, where is it? So, what does time mean to the galactic historian?
Say that again.
And what does time mean to the galactic historian from your perspective?
When I have an appointment or when I don't have an appointment. And if I don't have an appointment, I don't need to be in time. And if I have an appointment, I need to be in time. But I generally try to live outside of time until I have an appointment.
And what do you do outside of time?
And there are times I make appointments in no time. Okay? Which can be any time. Okay? And I have a spiritual PA that helps me manage my time zones.
A sovereign being or a shard of yourself?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay, so I have a question here. Well, not a question. Just I have a collective from the future that just want to be heard or want to be remembered, and they'd like you just to speak a little bit about them.
Okay.
And they have a name. They're calling themselves the Clan Waha.
Do they have a statement?
No, they just wanted you to speak about them, just to let us know who they are.
As a name? You still have a lot of learning to do. Now, don't take this as a challenge to do more work because you've already done enough work to get to where you're at. And in fact, doing any more work to get there faster will slow you down getting there. You've reached a point where you must go to explore the horizon's edges and the great many space in between before you go to any higher form of frequency. There's so much else to be learned about how shit works. Okay? And you need entire generations that take on that aspect. How does shit work? You have millions of people trying to figure out how the universe works and then share it with other species. You don't need to go any higher. Guess what? It's going to take you longer to get there. And the whole time of trying to get higher, you're just exploring what's already there. Because it's not a glass ceiling. It's a change in densities and how you perceive awareness and complete totals. What's written in those ancient scrolls is not you think you turn into a pile of light for ascension. Okay? Just poof, shed your bodies like old clothes? No. And turn into a ball of light? No. Unfortunately, that's a dogma amongst their people. Okay? It's a joke. It's like we call it light workers. You know, they call it disrobement. Okay?
I enjoyed that. Okay. So we have a species here, and we'll go back to maybe describing the species as well. And this species, they gave me... can you just mute a minute, Dale? There's a bit of creaking going on. Good man. They gave me imagery rather than words. So we'll see what you can do with this. So their name is the Shumhaya. And the image that I got was like a beige-coloured rod. And they asked for help.
I don't know where it's at. It's an object that only exists in the land of the lost. Now, how do you get to the land of the lost? Well, you go backwards in time until there is no time. Now, time explorers have been doing this since the dawn of time, going back to a moment there was no time. But you'll also need a way for people to make that journey fun, because if it's not fun and it's a challenge and it's a chore, you'll just be smacking people, like bugs against their windshield at 90 miles an hour. The last thing they know is their ass going through their consciousness. A bug. So Here, they sacrifice human beings all the time like bugs to the windshields because they don't care. You should care on your part of that journey.
So can you describe what's going on here, Andrew, for us?
There's a device that will... I don't want to make it sound like, the super magic item, but essentially it has that ability to show them how to tweak their culture, their science, their spirituality, so that they all become more agreeable to each other over a span of a generation. So it's a way to neutralize or neuter zealotry on any of the extreme realms of perception. It'll target those individuals that go into zealotry and bring an energy to them. It'll create a release, a collective healing growth for everything.
Isn't that stepping on their journey?
Well, no, they do it as a collective. It's the only way the technology works.
So they have to be in agreement.
Yes. How do you get everyone to agree?
Mm.
And can you
Agree
describe
to
the
what?
land? Can you describe the land of the lost, and is it available, or is it there for all universal citizens?
It's there for all universal citizens. You just understand the hairball that was created to hide it. And that's all the infinite time wars that have been going on for the last 54 million years. And that's why I call it a hairball. It's like 10 cats coughed up a hairball and try to find one thread of line of time through, 10 hairballs. It's that hard. So what is the land of the lost? That's a definition from the Mandela effect revocation, which defines those who had a physical time, and because of time travel wars, suddenly did not have a physical time. Somebody erased their line of time and outbred them on another timeline. And they had to figure out a way to get back in time because they had broken sets of contracts.
What's the difference between that then and a timeline shelter?
A timeline fallout shelter is something different for a different group of species who understand the time erasure wave. One of the many time erasure waves were coming around, and that's the great timeline destructions that reset everybody. There were species who knew the different four erasure events were coming, and they made these shelters to survive in them, so they could survive an entire erasure of time throughout the whole universe, the multiverse. Cricket?
Yeah, you going Maty or not?
Yeah, I'm just getting some questions down. So, there's a few. What's quite difficult here is there are many species that obviously their language cannot be written in English. So I'm very limited until I start speaking light language. Then it becomes really infinite. So I've got a couple of questions here, and then we can go into some stuff where really I'm just getting a certain species come in, and I'll give some light language. So this will be interesting to expand on as well. This group are called the Shikata, and they're asking why the fifth moon outside of Kata was removed and who did it.
Moon pirates is the easiest answer to give them. There are beings out there who will find a great looking planetoid and go, I want it. And they'll go and take it and teleport it somewhere else, put engines on it, put technology around it. Like stealing a car, they can steal moons and planets.
And so can you describe this species and maybe the star system and what's going on there?
All right, so there's 6 main planets in the star system, 1 gas giant, 3 Arctic worlds, and the rest are a variety of semi-arid, arid worlds, and some heavy water worlds. The moon that was taken had a very a high spiritual significance because of what was when that moon was formed. It had technology that was in its core that when it went through its cool down phase, that it would be generated these mass volumes of micro diamonds that were so densely packed in its different layers and cores that would make it a perfect spiritual crucible in which spirits could enter and go through their walk of truth of what it took to evolve. That's
Wow.
ultimately what the value of that moon was. Now, this type of species, um, it's fair to say there's 60% human DNA, but the other DNA that's in them is Vraken, which is another version of mammalian, but not human mammalian, or other versions of mammalian. So it's like an orangutan and kangaroo.
Hmm.
Look, okay, kangaroo. I mean, very muscular, very well built, designed for heavy density worlds. Um, they can jump really far, like 10, 20 meters. You know, they can easily bench press 700 kilograms.
Jesus. Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, I wouldn't want to get on the wrong end of one of those. Sounds dangerous. So,
Um, they're not really a warlike species, though they've learned many of the lessons. It's just whatever. When that moon was there was always a balancing energy. People to figure it out, and now that they don't have it there, they can't identify who they are. The thing is, they can recreate all the effects that moon had on each of the local worlds. It just requires a lot of working together.
hmm.
Okay, micro diamonds, solidified micro diamonds, heavily packed is not an uncommon thing. It's just uncommon to have it on a whole moon.
Hmm. So it's like they had a sacred object stolen.
Yes, a celestial sacred object. Yeah,
I'd be pissed.
it'd be like stealing one of the queen's crown jewels.
Yeah. That's crazy. Which leads me on to the next species, who are calling themselves the Moira. And all they gave me was an image of a red stone, a very well cut red stone. And they're questioning its validity, whether it's real or not.
So let me ask this to you, to them.
Hmm.
If I give you an answer you don't like, is that stepping on your journey?
Yeah, it might be.
If I give you an answer you do like, and it's not the answer, am I stepping on your journey? I haven't asked about me yet.
They
Is that stepping on
laughed.
your
They
journey?
laughed and they're like, yeah, okay.
Okay. Now, let's say I do bring this information to you, and a variety of people accept it as good, and a variety don't, and there's those that see it as stepping on the journey. So, are you asking for everybody, or are you asking for yourself?
Yes, because it would fracture the collective.
Not just the collective, but so many of their trading partners who share similar ideas.
So there's all this debate going on.
Now, let me tell you the answer. I don't know. I don't know it because I don't want to look at it because I know what it entails just by looking at it. Awareness is the whole level of the game, and it's an object I don't want to be aware of
Okay.
for the reason I just stated.
Okay. Okay. They accept that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'll get into a couple of light language ones.
Loaded questions from the off-worlders.
Yeah. So I'll go into a couple of light language ones.
Okay.
So this is like a dinosaur type species. So
And they just want me to respond just from that?
hmm You want more?
No. I have to give a relation to them, but something so the rest of the audience here can understand. In their culture, there are, we'll just call it way of the feathers. Feathers grow naturally, and then they can grow magically. And the journey to create magical feathers is a whole different journey than the species is taking now. They lost their oral teachers and historians, much like we did. Different circumstances, though, but still a tremendous trauma. And they have to go back to the magical feather creation. So many of their species don't understand the nature of their own bodies and how magical feathers can change everything about their culture for a more positive, unique, interactive relationship with the entire environment around you. Okay. Also, leaving magical feathers on other worlds gives ancestral relations there and allows ancestral spirits of your different cultures to begin occupying other worlds and seeding the astral worlds in case others want to come visit in another form. Yeah, these magically feathers are highly sought after, and it's why an aggressive species came into your realm and did what they did. As I said, different circumstances. They just wanted to harvest your magical feathers, but they just did it so much that the culture forgot how to do it naturally. It's only natural productions of it. Much like we force, tens of thousands of chickens to lay eggs. They were harvesting feathers for long enough so they forgot how to naturally do it. There is enough left in the collective wisdom to train people how to naturally do it and support those journeys and encourage those journeys and make that a cultural shift.
Very cool.
They're very bright colored species. The feathers are everything. It's like when birds mate here, there's an entire language just between the dances of feather dances that they do. Same over there. Their light language is feather dancing.
That makes sense. So why were these beings harvesting their feathers? What were they using them for?
You can hijack the ancestral field and put anything else that you want into it.
Gosh.
So that's one thing. So that means they could leave these feathers scattered over hundreds of worlds and hack into them so that they can get whatever they want to start incarnating there.
Is it a dominating force?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a group that wants to spread its basis of its culture and DNA as wide and as far as it can, and it doesn't matter if it's interconnected. Each one will evolve through their own genetic things that have been put into their triggered positions.
Wow, I don't understand that very well.
It's a way to outbreed a natural existing cult society and culture.
Oh, okay. Much like we had here.
Yeah, well, because here our initial birth cycles were much longer. They were 3 to 4 years. When you're looking at the main cow herd mentality was really enforced at a particularly high level. So having those extended births meant more unique types of souls from further and away from angles of perception could also make it in and then be determined if these are the types of souls that they want in their farm. Because a farm is ultimately harvesting not just the soul energy, but those unique and powerful souls who have come from other places and are saying, I'm going to incarnate here for the next 10,000 years. And I'm going to make an influence in space and time.
Gosh, that's terrifying. Horrible. Okay, I'm looking forward to this next one. This is the last question I have for now, so maybe after this we can maybe take some questions or... So this... The best way I can describe this is like a electric energy. It looks like a a bush of electric energy. That's the best way I can describe it. And their language, I'm just going to have to speak to it in my light language because it's going to be quite condensed. So it's the only way I'm going to be able to relay the information. And I'm really looking forward to hear your description of what's going on here. So.
All right, so first thing first, we are not the only species in the multiverse going through a grand crisis of consciousness. Okay? We just happen to be intertwined with negative time travel, which puts us in a different league of we have to outfix first. There are thousands of other worlds and systems and whole spaces that are in dire need of help too. And this is one of those species that's on the perennial top 10 list. Help us. Okay? But what do they offer back? They offer advanced wisdoms and teachings and healings. Cultures from around the space in the universe have been sending help to their direction for thousands and thousands of years. But now the other cultures say, when does this end? Okay, so they just want to say, hey, there are other people out there that need help too. And if humans can think about that, this energy of helping everybody can be spread much farther and much deeper. There's things being implemented here that aren't being implemented other places, that if it were, it would make things a lot easier over there. But unfortunately, the unique soup of shit going on here does affect everywhere else.
And when you say they need help, do you mean they've been invaded, or is it the birth?
Natural, in this particular these thing, it was a celestial disaster. So it was a trinary star system that had hundreds of livable worlds in it, and they're like living ball lightning and plasma, so they don't need physical forms, even though they can take it. There was some type of I don't know, electromagnetic burst that came out of the planet that was causing many of them to shift into other realities, which was then polluting multiple other star systems. Okay? It rifts in space and time. So they need space-time, experts and surgeons to come here in mass. Because there's trillions of beings affected in it.
And I imagine if you were to take a species, any species that's a completely different type of species, and just put them with a load of other species that may be not ready for them or them ready for them, then you could cause all manner of other problems.
You cause the refugee crisis.
Yeah.
The refugees will always be seen as refugees.
Yes.
So for like time travel wars, Andrew, what does it take to kind of clear it up? Does it take a fucking long time and a lot of effort with all these timeline wars?
It takes humans and a great forgetting to figure out how we fucked each over the last 10,000 times, and to have a relationship and not having the previous karmas affect our choices. The great forgetting is a huge part of that. It's how we can reduce something from infinity to finite.
That's cool. So I'm going to take a few minutes to get some questions down, guys. Dale, do you want to ask some questions from some of your fellas?
I've got some, but you carry on, Dale.
No, you go ahead, Laura. Get your questions.
Well, since we've been doing this, Andrew, I've had like the Ithian Collective.
Okay.
Who'd like you to tell people how they have learnt to live in peace. And the image I get is of islands, like very sandy islands, and a very peaceful setting. And they seem to be like right out in the corner of the universe, or a long way away. They don't feel like they're very well known. And I get the feeling that they'd like to have more presence and more connections, because I know that might be one of my original homeworlds. I know we have had this conversation a long time ago, and they said there's others like me on Earth who would be good if they could start communicating with them.
Okay, I know this species well. So back in the old days of our world, you had the cities, and basically anything 50 miles outside of the cities was considered, nowhereville, right? We can agree with that. And when United States was first found after the Revolutionary War, it took them a while to cross the Mississippi, and go further west. In that metaphor, they are out west before the Revolutionary War. That's how far away they are. But they're really not that far away with dimensional drives that we have now. It's instantaneous travel. But their journey to get there was not instantaneous travel, which made them very hermetic. Naturally, if you're surrounded by your own people for this extended long journey and then this new place in a new world, you become a little, distrusting of the things you don't know physically, which has grown into a longer term xenophobia. Are they truly afraid of others? No. They're just stuck in their cultural dogmas that this is the way that we've done it, this is how we grew through it, and this is the way we will maintain it. So, do they have the ability to make themselves well known? Yeah. Species from other worlds visit them all the time, buying crops and all sorts of other things. They have bazaars, but you don't have motivated leaders who want to advance that, not just, turn it into Vacationville, okay? But turn it into a way of this type of living can be applied anywhere. You got to have motivated people that want to take that and then take risks with new cultures, new places, new spaces. Deep down inside, you already know that your technologies is on par with everyone else's that are out there when it comes to agrarian worlds, meaning farming specializes in high quality technological and spiritual farming. You've balanced both sides of it. And that type of food has a much greater value to the rest of the galaxy versus holographically animated food. That's like when you order in Star Trek, you order food out of the replicator versus them having it as real food. There is a difference. The difference is in your consciousness. So there's your answer. Stop being hermits. Stop being xenophobes. Get out there, motivate, find your hustle muscle. All the opportunities are there for you. But you've had some lazy children who just didn't want to expand.
They said it's a form of resistance they think is running through them. Yeah.
It's like a conservative movement that doesn't allow growth.
Yeah, they're laughing. They said, can you describe their spaceship technology to others so that we know?
All right, so they don't need to build their ships out of wood. I'm sorry, metal. They build their ships out of stone. So just like we would pour concrete, they are able to pour a very heavy, something like a volcanic basalt that already has an electromagnetic frequency and spectrum to it. So the hull of the ship technically becomes the engine with no moving parts. So their ships are made of basalt stones. Again, it's a very hard stone, gives it a background electromagnetic structure, but it also allows them to have density manifestation spaces. So there can be more space inside one space than one can appear. Like, the genie in the bottle, there's an infinite space in the bottle. If a ship's 10 foot by 10 foot on the outside, it's 1,000 by 1,000 on the inside.
Yeah, it almost looks like a piece of carved wood when you look at it.
Yes. They make them very ornate, extremely ornate. It's like ornate art objects flying through space with no visible engine because the art is the engine.
Yeah, I get that. It's almost like a type of a Viking ship in some ways. I'm seeing carvings.
There are historical references to their genealogy and the different people who were explorers to get to that space that was so far away.
Thanks.
Next.
Okie dokie. So this one is in light language. Yanaha Wahui Taka Naha Chui Da Ba Nagawa Nagawa.
Oh. I'm hanging on right now. Another loaded question.
Really? There's a few of them loaded. I'm not sure which ones to read or not.
Now let me try to answer it. Ultimately, the thing asking the question has an ulterior motive, and ulterior motives are not necessarily bad in the beginning. It's just not all ulterior motives understand the implications to the rest of the world around that person. They're such a serious species. It's like a species of all Karens. How does it work?
Aggressively, I imagine.
Well, no, it works by people surrendering to an argument.
To the loudest shouter.
No, it's not shouting. It's dominance, energetic dominance through words, conversation, dances, music. Kind of like, South Park, You've Been Served.
Mm.
Yeah, it's too loaded a question.
Okay. I'm going to have to get some filters for these guys. I am. Okay. Let's
they know not to ask them.
Yeah, but I'm going to have to figure out who's taking the piss or not.
No, it's all right. I beat them up in their own world.
Okay, we'll stay in the serious frequency just for now, and then there's some better stuff, I think. I hope. So here's a strange question. It's a lot unlike any of the others. So there's a being who's calling themselves Puita, and they're saying that they've been free roaming, and that they're contemplating an anchor point to Earth. They can see multiple timelines involving their own interactions. And is it the right point for grid reference? And I'm going to give some numbers. 6312 0136 555 Chaka. It's a strange question.
No, it's not the right grid reference. First thing first, Earth does not follow standard celestial encoding when it moves through space and time. It will regularly speed up in slow zones and go slow in fast zones, so its coordinates cannot be accurately tracked. You received those coordinates at a moment in time where it was in a slow zone, which meaning it was going much faster. And if you were to attempt to connect to it, it would backfire in your technology and cause great harm and loss of life. The next thing, is it right to connect to Earth before it's gone through its journey of awakening? Well, that's your moral compass to decide. With all these beings that are preaching non-interference, let things happen, let things go, you will be at the front of a political, spiritual argument that has been procreating here for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, of what to do with this toxic waste zone. We got to fix it at some point. We can't ignore it anymore. And that's why so many of cultures around the multiverse came together, because they knew it had to be taken care of as a collective of people. If you didn't, it would get out of control again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. So have they only recently discovered this, or
No, they've been on that journey for a while. Earth has many names. It took them a while to realize it was all the same planet.
There's depths to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go another couple of light language ones. So I was given some imagery here, and then I'll give some light language. So the imagery was like a small dark pink flower that was four-petaled. Okay. So sa hinke ihe so ihe nata jinte ta lilie puhulu puhurdoko baka nakatakaha taka.
All right, so first thing first is the flower is not a flower. It's an actual etheric butterfly type energy. It's something that can pass between the physical world and the sleeping spirit world and connect the two. Kind of like silkworms of the ancient past that were collected in the different Chinese empires had silkworm farms. Same things can be done to these. Now, this species does this, but they've also reached a level of industrialization where they've taken some of the unique magic out of it by refining a strain to produce a type that's most valuable to the rest of the species. And they know that they need to change this because naturally it's part of those genetic progression of the growth process. And right now it's just a fracture of those that don't want to give up the old to experience the new. Okay, what could this dream silk do? Amazing things. They are putting out amazing products. They just have to develop the next generation of amazing products. Stop standing on the shoulders of your ancestors 100 generations ago who figured out how to do it.
So what type of species are we talking about here that's harvesting these beings, these moths?
No, they're harvesting their silk.
The silk.
They do not have harsh lives. In fact, they're like free roaming chicken. They have an area, yes, that they're bound to through a technology, but they have everything, all of their needs met. And they're able to birth whatever unique souls they want into each of these little things. So there's no over forbearing controlance into the spiritual world, not even a policing force. Because when you convert a space to begin harvesting this like dream silk stuff, the space naturally becomes very sacred. And you need people who can tend sacred spaces. Okay, and they've created thousands of worlds that have this. Now it's time to open that sacred space up to other spiritually practicing cultures for them to come and experience it, and take some of the silk thread growth offline to become a sacred spiritual place of communication. So many billions of dream threads have been there. Imagine what the best spiritual minds from around the multiverse could do as a unique experience there, what wisdoms they can learn.
Wow. And so do this species, what can you describe them, Andrew?
They're about 5'4", 5'5" is the average height. Green and brown skin. Not terribly meaty, but not muscular. They almost look cartoonish in the way that they move. Like, the muscles shouldn't support the body, but it does. And when you look at them internally and anatomically, they have 3 of each of the major organs. So they have 3 hearts, 6 lungs, 3 livers. So they have multiples of everything. So they're very powerfully surviving species as well as rapidly adaptive. And multiple organs also makes them be able to deal with very dense negative energies, which makes them, once again, perfect things for tending sacred spaces.
So did they ever put any of their own souls into these butterflies?
They did in the past, but ultimately they realized that the technology if they let them freely choose on their own, they would get more silk out of them than any form of control. And it took them many generations to figure this out. But once they took the restrictions and control away, that collective group of energetic butterflies created their own spiritual rules and nothing would interfere with it, the production that they would get would be much greater. They then just instilled this process. Stop interfering with the things, they'll give you more. And they obviously learned more about the species itself during this time, but the radical transformation of what it meant as a sacred space. Because at first it wasn't truly realized that that's what it was. They just thought it was a serenity energy that came from the multiple birthing process. But then other species who had different forms of technology to detect spirit go, no, this is a manifestation of birthing energy. And then there's more than the birthing energy. There's the dream, the infinite dream potential energy here. And then they began to learn more and more about other perceptions through technology that allows them to have a greater understanding of the tens of thousands of spaces they had made that had spent thousands of years procreating this dream silk.
And so much like we've focused on cannabis, just one element of it, we lose some of the other parts of it that,
Right.
have they done this? So basically what they've done is they've overused the sacred space part.
No, they didn't. They never let these sacred spaces being opened up to natural travelers. They were always closed down facilities only their people were allowed at. Because their people had the three organs, and the three organs meant it was very difficult for negative spirits to infest the manicures of this energy.
So have they effectively removed certain strains of this silk?
Yes,
And
but
to what?
it has healed itself over the many generations. Once it was allowed to have its own non-interference from them as technology, the agreement is you will get more silk than you have gotten in each previous thing because we will make it a part of our growth. Okay.
That makes
Also,
sense.
they know they're conscious beings too. They're not. They know that too, and they spent thousands of years, and they really don't know more than the basic language between the two. So this culture is at a figuring, well, just like we do spiritual tours, they're going to have to do that in mass. And then how do you advertise to the universe? Hey, yeah, we have 250,000 sacred places that have never been visited by consciousness other than our own beings.
Yeah.
And, each of them have done tens of thousands of years of creating, dream silk thread, open for business. We got good food.
That's mad. Would there be a lot of people wanting to go and see that kind of thing? Would it attract attention?
There'd be those that would be afraid of it going to see it because you're just talking about.
It's like walking into somebody's house, isn't it? Look, somebody that never has let anyone in their house before, and you just walk into this house after a very long time.
Right. It just be difficult to describe, and then they're not ready for tourists, let alone people having spiritual experiences in their front yard.
Yeah. That was interesting. Yeah, it just looked like a flower to me. Okay, so this one's a little bit heavy. I'm going to do it again in my light language. And this is a sector of space where there's an invasion about to take place, and they just want to get a heads up on what they can expect. Like, well, I'll give you the light language and you can explain.
And what do they want me to say from that? All right, so there are worlds that are I just call them ocean worlds. Very little land above the water. And what this creates is a heavy, heavy, heavy duty of conscious, aware beings who exist in a very powerful global food chain. It's kind of like our global narrative. For us to break out of the global narrative is one thing. Imagine having to break out of the global food chain.
Yeah.
And that was your shift in consciousness. And as you were experiencing that shift in consciousness, you could have something that's a rat, something that's a snake, something that's a sea monster, all been going through the similar journey, but on the other side, they're a rat, you're a sea monster, but you all realize you went through the same journey of getting out of the great food chain. So it wouldn't matter what you look like, and they'd have to figure out how to get along with each other. And this culture is going through this right now. They have not venerated those that have left the food chain and have a far too much veneration of the food chain itself, which has created blind faith. And blind faith is still blind faith. It's still a faith journey through it to open up your eyes to not be blind to the truth of the natural evolution that's coming through this world. When you have a world that's an ocean world, it absorbs light radically different than our world. Okay? That light gets stronger and stronger in the mitochondrial power plants of each and every cell of the water. And the water is a collective of stored light, which allow beings to go through very rapid advancements of conscious evolution in a subwater environment that goes from very deep depths to very shallow depths, all the different forms of salinity to temperature changes. Okay? And everything there shares a common food source, a plankton food source. Whether they're, filter versions or meat eaters or whatever, it all serves the great food chain there. Now they do operate technology. Okay? And how does a fish make technology? Their way, they don't need computers like we would, nor would they need welding tools. They could create ships out of consciousness or create a shell, like an underwater shell system that would grow, which would be the outside of the shell in which they could graft anything else, alchemically graft anything else to it that they wanted. They could even make ships out of water, completely out of water, that could exit the geosphere and travel intergalactically or intersolar system, out of pure water.
So are they the invasion they're concerned about? Is this a spiritual invasion or a physical invasion?
Invasion is the wrong word.
Okay.
Immigration. Without immigration control, what does that create?
Yeah. So are these guys being bigoted, or is their fear kind of genuine?
It is both bigoted and genuine fear, because the volume of immigration coming is more than any of their conservative societies could even begin to accept. They have very progressive societies also. Okay? See, they don't share a common skin suit either. Any fish or school of fish can become conscious there. Okay? And then, I talked about getting out of the great food chain. That's a whole other cultural shift going on. If big volumes of them go through the shift and exit out of the great food chain, that means these new beings can take their place or can come into the new system where they didn't start with the food chain, which will then allow them to make an above the water life grid.
And so is this a form of forced evolution?
It can be seen that way, but it could also be seen as
A natural evolution?
natural. You didn't choose, you didn't choose, you didn't choose, and the universe chose for you.
Yes. And how does this relate to their ancestral connections?
So underwater worlds, ancestral energies are connected through the water threads, and these water threads are just emanations of ley line energy that keep common lineages grounded into an area, and they're very like a song, whale song type energy, the recording of historical pasts. And if you are a seeker of the faith, you can go to these areas and hear it in the water, like a telepathic chorus.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So are they being invaded? Let's take the word invaded out, and having large volumes of spiritual immigrants coming from other worlds that did not have a graduating timeline but came nowhere close to it. So many of their things have to go through a conscious evolution growth period, and their world can allow beings to rapidly grow. The food chain provides extremely unique situations that a short life can have thousands of years of wisdom in it. Okay?
Just from moving through different waters, different temperatures, the water has...
And how the food chain works, who the predation species are, how to make peace with the predation species too, how the physical culture versus the dreaming culture is.
So
There's no one common skin suit that dominates the area. Okay?
Yeah,
But
that
they
makes
all
sense.
share and use the same common technology.
That makes sense. So are these separate collectives or separate beings? And maybe they might have different shows like...
Many of them are not even collectives. They're
Right.
just a school of fish, okay? Each with a little micro amount of intelligence in it, but because they share a DNA lineage, they dream together and can talk together with other versions of them. That's how their micro macro culture works.
That's cool.
Imagine a school of fish with 100,000 fish in it, and each fish is an individual being who has a specific purpose as the ever moving school of fish. Your number is going to get called at a certain date, and you know it. Okay? You're not afraid of it either. You welcome it. You get as much done as possible during it.
That makes sense. Okay. So, another light language one. This is a species or a collective called the Shana. Maha ta kachikite kapakite ko kukinka kapechiko hokokika. Iketa kichika kitika kumpoko kuchiko kumpoko. To tapachikilia kitaka ndokokum.
I'm grinning my lips of how to actually answer this question. This is not a loaded question. This is a semi-loaded question. Okay?
Can you describe the general narrative for us when you've finished processing?
This is a. I'm going to just call it galactic gossip. Okay?
Well, this is the right place for galactic gossip.
Amongst very high-level conscious beings. So what do high-level conscious beings gossip about? Okay? So I got to figure out how I can describe the gossip to you. What it is that they're complaining, moaning, bemoaning, but not really doing anything about. Just bringing it up to be, more intelligent than someone else.
Yeah, I understand the concept, yeah.
Okay, so if you were to look at those galactic gossipers as its own unique culture, you have thousands of worlds, but each world has only a handful of people that pay attention to the newses of other worlds. Okay, so you have your news junkies, and those news junkies can connect themselves to many ongoing lines of time in many worlds, and are allowed to perceive many times of worlds, and they often are able to multidimensionally exist in many places. Where after a while they become from nowhere, but say they're from everywhere. And this culture is these gossipers are talking about how this be everywhere idea is taking over, like what we would call the yuppies took over. It's a cultural takeover, and it's like when we complain about the millennials, it's like that too.
Why? What was their reason to ask you that question?
Is it right for them to say, "Pull up your pants"? Okay, to like the African Americans that wear their pants down to their knees,
Right.
even though that culture came from prison when they take their belts away because of fighting and all that. So they
Yeah.
learn how wear and then get out. They just wear it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. It's an old culture that's very judgmental of all the other old cultures out there. And I
Are they?
guess I no, I mean, there's a these are deeper things. As I said, it's partially loaded
Yeah.
because I had to make a observation of them. Many of the other galactic gossiper groups have had an observation made of them that they've identified as having a true energy into it, which means they've gone too far in doing it. Okay? So somebody did it to get an awareness on it, which would expose it to the rest of the collective of that
Right.
gossipers. It's got that collective group of gossipers
Clever.
and how they're seeing this whole other culture of light living take over and complain about it.
It's huge high frequencies coming from this collective. Okay, that's all the questions I've got for the moment. Does anyone else want to ask any questions?
Well, I just had all day, Andrew, since really I knew we were going to do this show, a form of galactic merfolk coming through, and it actually feels quite a sad energy, because the image I keep getting is like we would keep a dog, say, on a lead, is as if they are a pet, treated like pets, but they're feeling enslaved by another species, and I don't know who the other species are. And that is really all I'm getting from them, but that's just been coming through for me all day.
All right, so what you're experiencing is what many of the merfolk here feel like. They feel like non-citizens of this world. And are they treated less than citizens? Yes. But the subterranean worlds, not under the ground, out under the water, have the same issue. You have a lot of things that are not supposed to be in the DNA pool. But because they're here, they just can't eliminate everything. If it's here for a reason. Okay? So these rapid immigration cultures from other worlds that came here and figured out how to not live on the surface, but not to live on the subsurface. Okay? Or how to live in the subsurface and not get detected and not be constantly influencing the global narrative as different forms of truth. So the many of the merfolk feel that way right now. And how can we
So
help
the
them?
imagery is really showing how they feel rather than in a physicality, in a reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, only recently did Finland approve that dolphins have consciousness, and elephants now are considered people in Africa. Only a handful of countries. Somebody else did a whale too, and whale and dolphin. So they are now getting rights as a consciousness. And then how far is it going to take that time for that movement to create recognizing consciousness in more than just two-legged humans? The rest of the conscious beings of awareness that are part of this world too.
Yeah, and there's a great sadness, isn't they, that they're reduced to myth as well.
They are every part of this awakening as we are. We are not the only part of the awakening. They're every conscious thing in this world, from the subatomic level to the macro level, is a part of it. Equally a part of it.
I had a question from Macro earlier on today, and he wanted to ask about an update about the Orion Wars and what's going on with the resolution process there and how it will affect the universe.
Okay. I have to not answer this with comedy. All right, so no farty or poopy jokes with it. All right, so I'm going to describe it like this. The Orion Wars started when some Orion hit on another species girl. It was a drama to begin with. But you have a variety of Orions who will simply say spit machine gun game to anything with a consciousness and a heart and a physical heartbeat they'll hit on. Doesn't even matter if their parts work. They're still going to do it. That created a hatred of them, a disdainment amongst people that turned into pure aggressive war. And when the war ended, they didn't stop machine gun gaming. They never really learned their lesson. So it's over, billions died, but you're still fighting about the same thing you started with. You just can't spit machine gun game at everything in the multiverse. Okay? Can you imagine what it's like to be managing 20, 30 lovers at a time?
So you're not speaking metaphorically there, you're meaning literally, Andrew.
Literally, I'm literally speaking,
Right.
Yes.
Why are they like that? What do they hope to get out of it, or is it just hardwired into them?
It's the energy of the planet.
Ah.
Okay, it's a divine masculine that's got a little bit of a 50s housewife in him. Okay? Okay?
And he's asking as well, what happened to the original ambassador?
The thing is, the women are just as bad. They hit on everything too. The women in the culture too. But again, we're talking about how the planet influences the culture. Not everyone is from the home planet, though, but it's still a humongous part of their culture. Machine gun game everywhere they go.
So
Everywhere.
what's the kind of karma? What's the kind of karma for the planet that came from? The planet's contracts that started an entire war through that energy.
It's happy.
A troublemaker.
No. A leader in a new thought process. Many's learned a lot from it. Okay?
And I guess it's always a process of resolution anyway. Or do those rules apply to the rest of the universe as well? The kind of resolution process that we have going on here, where there is a kind of more of a...
The remedy and resolve here will work for here, but won't work for anywhere else until it's actually worked for here.
Right.
So anybody gets an awareness of what's going to work for here, it won't work anywhere they want until we've actually made it work here.
Yeah. And so that must be a grander part of the remembering then, as the process moves on. That's the more fifth world of peace energy.
Yeah. I don't often get to so much, there's so much serious shit about the Orion Wars. They were nasty. They were wars that just became very nasty, involved thousands of other species who didn't even know what the original slight was about. Okay? It was about a bunch of Orions coming around everywhere they went, hitting on everything, and people started to dislike them for that as a culture. Okay? But I'm treading on water I shouldn't talk about. Because it just got out of control. And the next thing, no one knew what they were really fighting about. They were just fighting about what you did here, what you did there, and it was all blended into one.
Yeah. Yeah. And eventually, it doesn't matter what initially caused something. Eventually, once you've had so many people having fights that they're just bothered about the fights themselves, the original course is lost.
Right. The drama.
Yeah.
And like I said, many of them haven't learned to stop the machine gun game. It's so ingrained into them.
That's such a unique perspective. You could never have, in a million years, have dreamt that up, that was the cause of the Orion Wars. You won't find that information on any Lightworker websites, that's for sure.
No, you won't.
He says, "Thank you for your conclusion, Andrew."
There'll be a galactic what is it? Wikipedia that'll be out there that they're suddenly going to change. Oh shit! Somebody's got to change the Galactic Wikipedia.
Okay. Right, so the questions are now coming mainly in light language. Let me know how long you want to go on for, Andrew.
Okay.
The questions are coming in mainly in light language because I can bring forth concepts that I don't know, as this Maty. Because obviously when I'm doing it in English, it's difficult for me to get their concept. So it's a much cleaner way of doing it. I'm not cheating everybody, okay? So here is a Mayan expression species. That's what I can see. Lots of gold and Mayan is the best way I can describe it. So Sha'ike Sha'i Ihe Ushka Tachi Gacha Go Umba Ka Taka Umbaha.
All right, so in this culture, they have a so the equatorial lines of this world are heavy jungles, and as you go more north or south of the equator, it turns into wetlands and swamplands. But the main jungle area is in the equator zone. And then as you get higher into the hemispheres, it kind of turns into like a permafrost thing. So it goes from jungle to arid desert to swampland to mountains and stuff like that. There are spirits of the land that cyclically come up during the year when the planet is rotating, because the planet's actually a moon of a bigger planet. And when it goes around the bigger planet, the moon itself enters these really high frequency emission bubbles from the surface of the planet, which is a gas giant full of gaseous life.
Wow.
And how do I put this?
That must be beautiful to see.
It can be, but again, to them, it's natural living. And I lost my thread.
Sorry.
It's okay. Where did I leave off at?
You were talking about. Oh gosh, no, I've lost it. The permafrost.
Oh, the different layers. Okay,
yeah,
the different layers. So in the jungle are their densest form of consciousness that lives within the trees and then lives in the culture. And then as you go different bands away from the thickest of jungles, new forms of that primary consciousness come out. The riverbeds versus the grasslands. And each of these are different nature spirits that as the planet moves around, it activates different energy cycles of the planet and it allows them to go on this worldwide tour of ancestral spirits coming to life in each of these lands.
That's incredible.
And it's something that will be done on Earth again.
So does it just it makes accessible beings that are in another realm of existence for a temporary amount of time?
Yes.
That's cool.
To learn from the dead, or to learn from the future, or to learn from the infinite potentials, or to just see the mystical magic of the manifestation. Everyone pilgrimages to it for a different reason.
Yeah, imagine going to see your 7 future generations for 2 weeks.
It's like doing ayahuasca without the ayahuasca.
Yeah. That's incredible. You can ask a question, Dale.
Yeah, there was a question as well, like what happened to the original ambassadors of peace in this universe and where they ended up?
Dead. And peace didn't work out very well, did it?
No.
What happens to the revolutionaries after there's a revolution?
Mm-hmm.
There's no need for revolutionaries.
Mm-hmm.
They die off. Why did peace not survive? Because there was an intentional culling of those that were peaceful to keep the aggression flowing.
You're saying they've lost communication with them completely.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, how does a being that knows only peace interact with a being that knows only war? Or some other frequency like that?
Greed.
Greed, wow. Yes,
Yeah.
that would be incredibly destructive.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's call it an end to the show. We've done a tremendous amount of galactic-based questions for those of you out there. Well, Laura, you want to give away for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. twofeathersmedicine.com. I do one-to-one sessions or a course, shamanic training or ancestral healing or connecting with your ancestors. I'm an ancestral medium. So you'll find me there or private message me, and I'm back on Sunday with Prayer Sunday. And thanks very much, everyone.
Maty, give away for people to get a hold of you?
Yep, so if you want to get a private session with me or look at my light language course or some other light language products, then it's twofeathersmedicine.com and just click on me.
Yeah, I'll give away for people to get a hold of you.
If anybody would like any soul surgery, psychic surgery work doing, go on to daletobin.com. Also, I train people in psychic surgery and past life regression as well. So thank you again, guys. Incredible show.
Yeah, it was great fun.
All right, everybody, you know who I am. You can go to my website, andrewbartzis.com. We are offering sessions, courses, and all sorts of other stuff, take a look at our store. I will be back tomorrow with Monty Dean for another comedy show.
Cool.
All right, Joel, take us away.
Healing comes in many forms, all the colors aligned. You are free as a dove when you choose, a sovereign state of being.
And allow this product to work with the 7 color chakras in our own energy system.
Meditations can trigger DNA wisdom and memories in light, out-creating our limited chemical memories. So sit back, relax, as we take you on a journey of light and colour.